Good morning and welcome to First Parish Brewster.
We are Okay, that wakes you up. We are a Unitarian Universalist welcoming congregation of people of diverse philosophies and beliefs, people of various cultures and races, sexual orientations, gender identities, abilities, and socioeconomic backgrounds. Whoever you are, wherever you are on your path, may this be a place of rest and restoration on your journey. I'm Pat Stover, your worship host this morning. Happy to be welcoming you to the service today with our interim music director, Kaiza Fern, and her father, Kenneth, who's playing the piano, and our guest preachers, the Reverends Diana McLean and Shay McKay. Reverend Shay McKay and Diana McLean are a clergy couple, both ordained UU ministers, and together have created an entrepreneurial, arts-based ministry called Sacred Depths. Shay grew up in the Golden Prairies of the Midwest, is a composer and musician, and graduated from Starr King School for the Ministry in Berkeley, California. Diana traveled the world with her military family, is a published writer with an MFA in creative writing from Naropa University, and is the proud mother of a 20-year-old son, Aiden. She graduated from the Iliff School of Theology in Denver, Colorado. They currently live, we have some hands raised back there, you know it. Okay, it was a toot to Colorado back there. They currently live in Minneapolis, Minnesota, with a cat, a dog, and many books. Welcome, Reverend Shay and Diana. Our services are recorded and available on our YouTube channel midweek. We do ask that all over the age of 4 mask while in the service. Please silence your cell phones. We ask that all wear their name tags or fill out a sticker name tag at the welcome table in an effort to be more welcoming. We also welcome the noises, movements, and mirth that little ones bring in our services. These services are 60 to 75 minutes long. If you need to leave before them, you're welcome to use the doors in the rear of the sanctuary. For those of you who may be first-time visitors this morning, welcome. Are there any visitors who would be brave enough to stand up and introduce themselves? Anybody out there who would like to introduce themselves? We will bring a microphone to you. No. We just heard from one. Didn't need a microphone there. Right. Okay. Welcome to you visitors. If you would like to learn more about FPBUU, please fill out a welcome card. You will find it on the back of the pew in front of you, and put it in the offertory basket. Welcome on this morning, which we make sacred by our presence together. A big welcome to people streaming. We are glad you are here. In community news announcements, please join the FPBUU board next Sunday at 11:30 in the sanctuary for a 6-month financial review. This will also be on Zoom as well. The link will be in the weekly angle. Next Sunday, you are invited to a service led by our Administration and Finance Director, Karina Stroh. Join her as she reflects on her sabbatical and the love that holds us in community. All are welcome at 10 a.m. And an additional late-breaking announcement, please remember to sign up to bring flowers or hospitality for Sunday morning services. We're kind of having a dearth of sign-ups, and a volunteer brought in these lovely roses this morning, but please give that table a look-see. Following the service today, everyone is invited to the parish room for mask-optional coffee and conversation or you are welcome to socialize in the sanctuary with masks on. Welcome to our service today. It is so good to be together. I'm a little out of breath after that. It was fun. Reverend Shay and Diana will be speaking today about the different paths that brought them to UU ministry. My path to Unitarian Universalism was through feminism, which was my religion in my youth and middle adulthood. The first time I lived on the Cape was in the 1970s. I was a feminist activist, and our project at that time was to have the state of Massachusetts ratify the Equal Rights Amendment, which we did ratify it, but the country did not. Anyway, if you can remember back that far, a certain number of states had to pass the amendment before it could be made part of the Constitution. Massachusetts, of course, did pass it. We feminists were given speaker training by the League of Women Voters on the Cape, and that training took place in the Barnstable UU Church. I was unchurched at the time, but fast forward to the 90s, when I came to the realization that feminism did not have all of the answers to life's perplexing problems. And I remembered that training being in a UU church. I joined my first UU church in 1992 and have been a member of 3 different congregations for a total of over 30 years. I am so grateful for the support that this faith has given me for my continuing personal and spiritual growth. This weekend, I attended the workshop on the soul of aging given by the Reverend Shay and Diana, which is the latest example of the kind of support that the UU faith provides. One of the things we were talking about in this workshop was comparing the first half of our lives with the second half, with the concept being that in the second half, perhaps we have a chance to live the life that we were unable to live in the first half. As part of our exploration, we were invited to make some art. We did a collage to illustrate this concept. I want to share my artwork with you because I made an important, for me, discovery while I was making this art. And my discovery was getting older can be so freeing. My collage shows progression. Over here, I've got a lot of rigidity, boxes that we were put into according to traditional sex roles, a quilt, an organized closet there, some blocks of stone and a foundation with bright primary colors. In the middle, I have a path going off to a new place. Over here, I have waterfalls, the ocean, clouds, and it's all kind of more muted colors and fluid. And I have a portrait of a woman here that I think strikes me as a really unique individual making her own way in the world. That's me as I get older. We light this chalice in honor of the support Unitarian Universalism gives us for our own personal and spiritual growth. And thank you for the workshop.
I invite you to rise, embody your spirit, and join in the gray hymnal, hymn 354, We Laugh, We Cry. Number 3. Yes, sometimes we scream too. Only 3 verses. We laugh, we cry, we live, we die, need to feel the freedom just to have some time alone. But most of all, we need close friends we can call our very own. And we believe in life and in the strength of love. And we have found a need to be together. We have our hearts to give, we have our thoughts to receive, and we believe that sharing is an answer. A child is born among us, and we feel a special glow. We see time's endless journey as we watch the baby grow. We thrill to hear imagination freely running wild. We dedicate our minds and hearts to the spirit of this child. And we believe in life and in the strength of love. And we have found a time to be together. And with the grace of age, we share the wonder of youth. And we believe that growing is an answer. Our lives are full of wonder, and our time is very brief. The death of one among us fills us all with pain and grief. As we live, so shall we die, and when our lives are done, the memories we shared with friends will linger on and on. And we believe in life and in the strength of love. And we have found a place to be together. We have the right to grow. We have the gift to believe. And we believe our loving is an answer.
Please join me in our affirmation. We believe in love. We believe in truth. We believe in helping others. We believe in the sacredness of life. Our story today is about a little tiny village that was happily just existing, maybe on Cape Cod, who knows? I don't remember where they were. They were a little tiny village, and they had everything they need, and everyone was friendly, and they all had little front yards, and they would be out, and the kids would be playing. Hi! And the dogs would be playing and barking and giving kisses, and everyone would be saying hi. Good morning. Welcome. And in this village, there was one street, one main street, and it went right through the center of the village, just right through. And on each side were houses and churches and buildings and shops and all of that that's usually in a village. And everybody could see each other across that street, and they would wave and say hi and go across and visit, and everything was great. And one day, they noticed way down at the end of that road, someone was walking down the road, and she was wearing really bright, beautiful, flowy clothing. She was very easy to see, and she just comes walking down that road right through the middle of the village, and she's waving and laughing running and saying, "Hello, hi." And everyone is smiling and looking at her and watching her walk through the village. They're like, "Who's she? I don't care. Cool." And finally one of the kids was like, "That's God." Oh, so cool. And they were very impressed that God had just walked through the village, and they watched her walk on by. And then they were standing around talking, and they were like, "Wow, that was so cool. I loved what she was wearing. I loved that she was so smiling. I loved that she said hi to everyone." And someone said, "I loved her hat. Her hat was my favorite thing. It was the best color of blue ever." And all of a sudden someone said, "Her hat was red." And within moments, there were the blue hatters and the red hatters. No. Her hat was definitely red. No, it was blue. I saw it with my own eyes. And within days, they had built a wall down that main street with the blue hatters and the red hatters. And within years, they had completely built an entire wall with a village on this side and a village on this side, and there the twain shall meet. And that's how they lived for a long time. Until one day, God decided to make another visit through this village, and she comes walking along the top of that wall, balancing, laughing, smiling, waving, and, just singing along with the birds. And they're all like, "Hi, God, hi, God." And one of them stopped her and said, "Can you please settle this argument and tell us who is right? What is the truth? Was your hat blue or red?" And she thought for a moment and she said, "Oh, that was the day I had my favorite hat on. It's so cool. One side of it is blue and one side of it is red. And it goes with any outfit because no matter how I turn my head, it matches." And then she walked away. And they all just kind of stood there in stunned silence until the children started laughing hysterically. Laughing, and then finally everyone started laughing, and their laughter vibrated that wall until it crumbled down, and they were able to see and love each other again, finding out that their truth was not always the truth.
I invite you to join me in a spirit of meditation as I offer these words from Jan Richardson. Where the map begins. This is not any map you know. Forget longitude, forget latitude. Do not think of distances or plotting the most direct route. Astrolabe, sextant, compass, these will not help you here. This is the map that begins with a star. This is the chart that starts with fire, with blazing, with an ancient light that has outlasted generations, empires, cultures, wars. Look starward once, then look away. Close your eyes and see how the map begins to blossom behind your lids, how it constellates, its lines stretching out from where you stand. You cannot see it all, cannot divine the way that it will turn and spiral, cannot perceive how the road you walk will lead you finally inside, through the labyrinth of your own heart and belly and lungs. But step out and you will know that the wise who traveled this path before you knew. The treasure in this map is buried not at journey's end, but at its beginning. Please join me in a moment of silence.
morning. My name's Marilee Crocker, and I've been a member of First Parish for nearly 35 years. I've been asked, as part of the stewardship campaign, to speak a little bit about my time here, what it's meant to me. 35 years is a long time, so I'll try to keep it short. One of the many things I really love about First Parish is that I can stand up here feeling a little bit nervous in my heart doing this. I don't speak that much in public. And I can trust that this is perfectly okay, that this is a place where I can be myself, I can be vulnerable, and odds are pretty good I'll come away feeling actually more connected and more loved, so thank you for that. So I moved to the Cape from Manhattan in 1987 to start a new job and a new life. I was 32 years old and single, and I really wasn't looking for a church at the time. I'd rejected all that when I was a teenager. But before long, I felt lonely and disconnected in this new place. Someone suggested I try First Parish. I liked what I heard about the social justice mission. But the truth is, I was really kind of desperate, so I showed up one Sunday in February to give it a try. To my surprise, what unfolded in my first decade here was really a spiritual opening that I didn't even know I was looking for. Here was a place where I could explore a kind of spirituality that was really very different from the God the Father messages I'd grown up with. But my first 5 or 6 years here coincided with a really rough time in my life. I was in intense therapy, I was dealing with childhood wounds, and I was really pretty raw and vulnerable. This place was a sanctuary, really, during that time. On Sunday mornings, I'd heard messages of profound acceptance and love from the pulpit and from other parishioners, and that was really a big part of my healing. In the 90s, I'm not going to go like year by year, I promise you. In 1922, in the 90s, First Parish began working on becoming a fully welcoming congregation to LGBTQ folks. And witnessing this process allowed me to finally, at age 40, come out to myself as a lesbian and then to my family. And it was First Parish members Karen and Marilyn, God bless you, who introduced me to my now wife, Mayreen. And when we held our commitment ceremony here in 2003 before marriage equality, it was really the biggest and most unexpected joy of my life. There have been many other unexpected joys. Singing in the choir is one. I had never sung before. I didn't know if I could. And I've been singing up here joyfully, if not always tunefully, for about 30 years. Another joy, recently I've been a co-facilitator of the Covenant groups, and I just have to say I love the trust, openness, and sense of belonging that emerge when in this safe space we share our personal stories and our innermost selves as we explore topics like love and belonging, courage and play. That was a little plug for Covenant groups. First Parish challenges me too. You challenge me to be a better person, to live up to our values of love, justice, and compassion. A really important part of this for me has been participating in our anti-racism programs, all of which have been profoundly eye-opening and life-altering. And you hold me accountable to that work, and I want that, and I need that. So I try to give back. Through the years, I've served on a bunch of committees, not because I love committee work. Right now, I'm on the policy committee. It's not sexy work. But it's necessary, so I say yes when I can, and I'm always glad I did. And that said, I'm really in awe of the folks here. There are a lot of you who give way more of your time and energy to this church than I do, and I can't thank you enough. So finally, in terms of my financial contributions, for the coming year, I've upped my pledge by about 9%. It might be a bit of a stretch. I'm only working part-time. We don't really know how this retirement thing is going to work out for us. But I have to say that given all that I've received here, all this love, no amount feels like enough. Thank you.
You to turn to your teal hymnal. We're going to stay seated for this. 1003. And I'll teach this to you line by line. I'll sing a line and you sing it back to me and then we'll be doing this in a round after we get to know it a little bit. Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? Where do we come from? Mystery, mystery, life is a riddle and a mystery. Your turn. Mystery, mystery, life is a riddle and a mystery. Where do we come from? Where are we going? Your turn. Where do we come from? Where are we going? Now let's sing this twice through, the whole thing. 2, 3. Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? Mystery, mystery, life is a riddle and a mystery. Where do we come from? Where are we going? Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? Mystery, mystery, life is a riddle and a mystery. Where do we come from? Where are we going? And then you start again. So this is group 1, group 2, group 3, yes, and group 4. We're going to do this in a round. We're going to start first. And we'll sing this. Group 2, yes, stand in front of right there. There we go. Okay. Are you group 1? Okay. Sing.
Can we have some clarity what the groups are?
Airline. 3. Hold your hand up when it's their time. Just start. Let's sing this through 3 times. We'll be daring. And we have a beat. 1, 2, 3. Are we ready? Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? Where are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? Where are we going? Where do we come from? What are we? Where do we come from?
I think we passed the round test. Each week, we have the practice of splitting our offertory plate. Half of what is collected goes to the work of First Parish Brewster, and the other half goes to a worthy organization nominated by members of this congregation. Today's split plate is with the NAACP Cape Cod branch, founded in 1961 and covering all 15 Cape towns. Its mission is to end racial discrimination and segregation in all public aspects of life. There are several ways you can give today. You can text to give. The number is in your order of service. You can donate on our website, or you can make a check out to FPBUU. However you choose to give today, thank you for your generosity. The offering will now be gratefully received.
As Pat mentioned, Friday night and yesterday, about 24 of you participated in a workshop on the soul of aging with the two of us. She mentioned that one of the activities was a collage. Another one was creating a map of your spiritual journey. Some of the maps and collages from that workshop are on the altar today, bringing some of the sacred work done together in the workshop into our worship together this morning. And that idea came from a workshop participant who wanted to tie those events together. Each of us came here to this place in our spiritual journeys, to the faith of Unitarian Universalism, and to this specific congregation following a unique path that is ours alone. Each of those paths are equally valid. All of them probably had struggles and obstacles and challenges. All of them asked us to make choices along the way. This is equally true for ministers. This morning you will hear parts of the journeys that led me and Shay to Unitarian Universalism and to ministry in this faith. Even in one clergy couple, you will hear that our stories are very different. As you listen to our stories, we invite you to keep your own story in mind. Where did your path begin? Where has it taken you so far on your journey here? What choices did you have to make? What have you had to leave behind? And what have you chosen to keep with you all along the way? If exploring your own story doesn't feel possible or safe right now, we invite you to just enjoy hearing these pieces of ours, and perhaps you will find some resonance within them.
So I was raised very Catholic, and church was everything.
I was raised unchurched until about age 10, and then my family church shopped for a while before discovering the Second Unitarian Church of Omaha, Nebraska.
When I say church was everything, I mean everything. We lived 2 blocks away from the parish that my parents were married in. My mom was baptized in. My grandparents were married in. My grandma was baptized in. Everyone I knew and everything I knew was Catholic, and there was just no other choice. Not only did we attend church every Sunday, but my sister and I also attended the attached elementary school, at which my dad was the principal, and my mom was the 3rd grade teacher, and my aunt was the librarian.
Meanwhile, I went to public school with friends of many faiths. One of the things that led my family to search for a church was that I began coming home from school and asking, why do my friends get to go to church and Sunday school and I don't? After trying a few churches where I mostly remember memorizing scripture to earn gold stars, it felt really good to find one where I was not only allowed, but actively encouraged to ask questions and to find my own answers.
In my Catholic church in the middle of North Dakota in the 80s, I was not encouraged to ask questions. However, I was allowed to get involved. I was able to be an altar girl, and I played piano for church all my life, and I, was a reader and an usher, and that was all well and good. I loved doing those things. But what I really was longing for was to feel something, and I never found that.
I was looking for depth and meaning too, and I was finding it intellectually at that Unitarian church, but not spiritually. By my early teens, the very things that had felt so good about Unitarian Universalism were beginning to be unsatisfying to me. I sometimes craved easy answers rather than always more questions. Being a teenager is kind of hard already without that. I also began to realize that I was missing what I would now call a sense of reverence, although I'm not sure I even had the language for it then. And I was also desperately longing for ritual, which again, I probably couldn't have even named. My childhood church was full of people who were what I would now call secular humanists, people I loved deeply, who had thrown out anything religious from their backgrounds because of deep wounds they had experienced in the faiths in which they grew up. I experienced encouragement to intellectual growth and to understanding the wisdom to be found in many world religions, but with little or no emphasis on Christianity, because that is where most of the wounds had come from. I experienced reverence and ritual when my religious education class used the neighboring faiths curriculum and visited several Protestant churches and a synagogue. I also found a sense of awe in the natural world.
As a teenager, I ultimately did find things that helped me feel and find meaning, but it never occurred for me at church. Catholicism just was never that for me. I watched my friends in high school lose themselves in ecstatic Christian worship experiences, and I envied them that deep faith, that sense of belonging, and the unhesitating commitment to a tradition and a truth. But I was never able to find that for myself.
My family moved away from Omaha after my 8th grade year, and for the rest of my childhood, we lived far from any Unitarian Universalist church. Still seeking reverence and ritual and belonging, I went to church with Lutheran and Catholic friends. I quickly found that although part of me was still longing for easy answers, a religion that I could not fully believe in was a worse fit for me than a religion that made me do the hard work of finding my own truth. Ultimately, I always considered myself a Unitarian Universalist, whether or not I had a congregation to belong to.
I was always a Catholic. I mean, there really was no other choice. You were either Catholic or Lutheran, and that was it. So I chose a Catholic college. I thought, I will learn my way into a deeper spirituality. But it did not work, even though the nuns tried. Instead, what I found was classes on other religions. And I found books in the library that I had never imagined existed. And I began studying and traveling in faraway places away from that close Midwestern place that I had always been. And I began meeting people with vastly different worldviews. People who ended up gently companioning me as I chose pathways that led me further and further from that Catholicism of my childhood. And it was a huge thing when in the senior year of college, I was walking with one of my mentors and I turned to her and I said, I don't think I believe in Jesus anymore. And she said, Shay, I'm Jewish, I don't care.
Traveling and reading led me into deeper spirituality as a young adult, too. In my late teens, when my family lived overseas, I unexpectedly experienced the presence of the holy in European cathedrals, Egyptian temples, Turkish mosques, and ancient stone and wooden circles in Great Britain. I also found a connection to the feminine divine through fantasy novels in which women priestesses served a goddess. When I moved back to Nebraska to finish college, I made increasingly frequent visits back to my childhood church in Omaha. I found that the culture there had shifted, including an increase in spirituality and ritual, which gave me what I had been searching for all along.
After college, I wanted to get away. I needed to try something new. So I joined a volunteer program. They sent me to Seattle, Washington, and I worked in a homeless shelter on the streets for 2.5 years, and it was a completely different world. While working there, I discovered the feminine divine. I formed deep relationships with other spiritual seekers, and I was mentored by incredibly strong women of multiple faiths. Over the next 1.5 decades, my winding path brought me near and far to what I needed, what I wanted, what I was searching for, and a whole lot of things that I knew nothing about. During my coming out process when I was 30, I briefly found Unitarian Universalism because I was living back in the middle of North Dakota to take care of my dad who was ill, and I Googled, where is a safe place? This was 2004. Where is a safe place to be gay in North Dakota? And one thing came up, And it was the teeny tiny little Universalist fellow, the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship in Bismarck, North Dakota, which is where I was living. So I went to visit them and figured out, oh, there is faith out there that will accept me for who I am. And after many, many years after that, after doing some more searching and seeking, I was living in Northern California. I answered a Craigslist ad for a job. I became the church administrator of the Humboldt UU Fellowship in Eureka, California, and I rediscovered Unitarian Universalism and found my people.
In my mid-20s, nudges towards ministry began to happen, although I have to admit it's much easier to see them in hindsight. Now they look maybe more like a 2x4 rather than a nudge, but at the time I was holding them off. First, my mother said that she thought my best friend would make a good UU minister. My instant reaction was a jealous, "Hey, what about me?" followed immediately by complete denial. "What the heck was that thought about? I don't want that." Several years later, when my beloved congregation in Omaha was without a minister for a while and members were taking turns leading worship, I reluctantly, very reluctantly, gave my first sermon and discovered that preaching was nothing like the public speaking I had always hated. Finally, at age 30, I went to my first General Assembly, and I got an absolutely unmistakable call to ministry. Even then, I postponed it. I was finally living my dream of being a professional writer, and I didn't want to give that up to become a minister. Eventually, I realized I didn't have to choose between writing and ministry, between getting a Master of Fine Arts in Creative Writing or a Master of Divinity. I only had to choose which one to do first. I chose the MFA, and 4 years after finishing that, I began seminary.
During my 20s and 30s, as I was moving around and searching and seeking, I was trying all sorts of different jobs like a good Gen Xer. I had several relationships. I mistakenly thought I had found my purpose many times. But there was nothing grounding any of this. I was completely without any faith or church. I had lost all sense of direction because I had lost any sense and touch with my own spirituality. And I didn't know what I believed. And it wasn't until I got that job at the UU Fellowship in Humboldt, California, and finally began rebuilding a framework and a groundwork for my sense of identity and truth to rest on, that my call to ministry made itself known and was immediately supported by the congregation I worked for, and within a few months, I was in seminary.
When I dreamed of becoming a minister in those years in between the call and responding to the call, I always imagined that I would attend one of the 2 Unitarian Universalist seminaries. However, after reconnecting with my first childhood minister and having several more of those nudges from the universe, I chose to go to a progressive Methodist seminary with a religiously diverse student body, including a small cohort of about a dozen Unitarian Universalists. Choosing that seminary gave me the opportunity to address gaps that I knew were there in my childhood religious education and therefore my cultural literacy, especially around Christian scripture and history. And it also allowed me to equip myself for interfaith partnership based in mutual knowledge and respect.
And I chose to go to a UU seminary because I really didn't know anything at all about Unitarian Universalism. I went to Starr King in Berkeley, and that was important because I would be a part of the Graduate Theological Union, which is a consortium of seminaries. And it meant that I could take classes at 11 different seminaries of varying faiths and religious traditions. During my time there, I intentionally chose to take many classes at the Catholic and Protestant schools in an effort to reintegrate some of the beauty within Christianity into my own spirituality. Later in my formation process, I chose to do an extra year of chaplaincy, and I worked in a Lutheran nursing home and memory care facility, where my own theology came second to that of those I was serving. All of this was necessary, as it helped me heal some of the hurt that had accumulated during all the years that Catholicism had told me I had less value as a woman and as a lesbian. It also helped me separate the religion from the church and to remember the essence of Jesus' message without having it all tangled up in millennia of patriarchy, empire, and capitalism.
I too carried some negative messages from my childhood church, not about my value as a woman, especially since the two ministers who served my childhood church during the years that we were there were both women. No, the harmful and hurtful message that I absorbed from my childhood was that Unitarian Universalists are a rational people, and that means there is no place for spirituality or mysticism, no room for mystery in our faith. That was the experience of that childhood congregation. Even much later, after I understood that not all Unitarian Universalists are humanists, let alone a particular type of humanists, I still thought that I had to choose between being a humanist and being spiritual. I rejected the label humanist for myself for a long time because I associated it with what I can only call the disdain that I had witnessed some humanists expressing for people like me. People who had mystical experiences, people who love ritual, people whose faith is found not only in our heads, but also in our hearts and spirits. During my internship, I read William Murray's book, Reason and Reverence, and I was finally able to claim the humanist side of our faith and of my personal theology. I realized that, as the book title suggests, I didn't have to choose between the reason, the rationality so prized in my childhood church, which is part of what had attracted me and my family to Unitarian Universalism all those years ago. I didn't have to choose between that and the spirituality that I had been missing in those early years and had worked so hard to find. I realized that our faith is large enough to hold both.
So these very different paths led us to remarkably similar places in our lives, Diana and I. First serving as UU ministers in small congregations in northern New England, and now living in the Midwest and creating an entrepreneurial ministry together. The author Paulo Coelho says, "It is one thing to feel that you are on the right path, but it's another to think that yours is the only path." As we said at the beginning of this sermon, each of us, each of you, came here following a path that is yours alone, and each of those paths are beautiful and challenging and vibrant and valid. Maybe you saw some of your story in mine or in Diana's, or both or none. Whatever your path was, it brought you here today, this morning, into this space with these people. And it is part of the beauty that you bring to the richness of the diversity of this community. You probably heard some things that surprised you in our stories. We learned a few new things about each other as we were writing this sermon. And we hope you will take away from this the reminder that none of us can assume we fully know or understand the journey that brought someone else to this place. Sometimes we can forget this, and we can forget that diversity is what makes us stronger and deeper. We can forget that not everyone comes to this faith from somewhere else, that there are those, few like Diana, who are raised or born into UU from an early age. We can forget that even those who have been UUs all their lives have their own journeys to make. It doesn't mean that they didn't have struggles and decisions to make. We can forget that not all of us have come here wounded from a previous religious experience. And we can forget that the rich theological diversity of which we are so proud and by which we are so blessed can, will, and certainly does include Christianity. As you heard, I had a lot of work to do to welcome the Christian part of myself back into my story, and I don't think I'm alone in that. As ministers from very different backgrounds, we have both heard from Christian UUs in our congregations and others that the one part of themselves that they feel is unwelcome in their own church is their Christianity. So I ask that we vow to do better at welcoming everyone fully.
So how do we stop making assumptions about our fellow congregants? How do we begin to understand and value each person's personal search for truth and meaning? I think the answer is that we take some risks. We have the courage to tell our own stories and to listen to the stories of others. I wonder if you know what the person sitting next to you believes. Are they a theist or a humanist? Do they identify more with Unitarian theology or universalism? What or who along their path influenced their beliefs? And what about you, dear ones? What from your past might you reclaim or reframe or rediscover in the safety of this community? What might you need to let go of in order to move forward in your own spiritual journey and the collective journey of this community? Spiritual growth only happens when we show up authentically, take risks, encourage and listen deeply to each other's stories, and ground ourselves in our shared principles and values while celebrating the wild and wonderful variety of theologies that exist among us. May it be so. Amen, and blessed be.
I invite you to take your insert for the words to our closing song, and you can rise in body or spirit and join in singing. We are living 'neath the great Big Dipper. We by this very same rain. We are swimming in the stream together, some in power and some in pain. We can worship this ground we walk on, cherishing the beings that we live beside. Living spirits will live forever. We're all swimming to the other side. When we get there, we'll discover all of the gifts we've been given to share. You've been with us since life's beginning, and we never noticed they were there. We can balance at the brink of wisdom, never recognizing that we've arrived. Loving spirits will live together. We're all swimming to the other side. We are living neath the great Big Dipper. We are washed by the very same rain. We are swimming in this stream together, some in power and some in pain. We can worship this ground we walk on, cherishing the beings that we live beside. Living spirits will live forever. We're all swimming to the other side.
As we prepare to leave our time of shared worship, may we have the courage to share the stories of our journeys and the openness to listen and honor the journeys of those who are here with us and those who have yet to join us. May that be our practice and our prayer. Go in peace. Go in love.